When I turned 75, I thought I had seen it all, the ups, the downs, and everything in between. But there was one habit I didn't realize was quietly draining my health, my energy, and my happiness. Complaining. I used to complain about my aching knees, about the weather, about how things just weren't the same anymore. It had become part of my daily routine, like brushing my teeth. But one day I caught myself mid-sentence and thought, what if I stopped complaining, just for a while? So I made a decision. For 30 days, I wouldn't complain about anything. Not my health, not my age, not even about people or the news. And that one decision changed my entire outlook on life. And surprisingly, my health too. When we talk about health and wellness in our later years, most people immediately think of diet, exercise, or medication. But the truth is, our mindset shapes everything: how we feel, how we move, and even how our body responds to aging. For years, I didn't realize how much my thoughts influenced my energy and health. I would wake up and start the day already thinking about what hurt, what wasn't working, or what bothered me. Complaining had become a habit, one that I thought was harmless. But every time I complained, I was reinforcing negativity in my mind, telling my body that something was wrong, that life was unfair, and that I was powerless to change it. When I decided to stop complaining for 30 days, I didn't know I was about to retrain my entire mindset. The first thing I noticed was how often negative thoughts appeared without invitation. Even small things like a cup of tea being too hot or a delay in my day would trigger irritation. It made me realize that my complaints weren't just words. They were my emotional reactions to life. By choosing not to speak them, I forced myself to pause and think before reacting. That pause became powerful. It gave me the space to replace negativity with awareness. Instead of saying, "My knees hurt again," I would think, "I'm grateful I can still walk today." That one change in thought didn't erase the pain, but it changed my relationship with it. I began to see my body as my companion instead of my burden. Slowly, that awareness grew into appreciation. When I looked for things to be thankful for, I found them everywhere. A warm home, a good meal, a kind word from a neighbor. The energy I used to waste on complaining started to fuel gratitude. My days began to feel lighter. I smiled more. I noticed how much better my body felt when my mind wasn't filled with frustration. Science tells us that positive thinking lowers stress hormones, supports heart health, and even strengthens immunity. I didn't need research to believe it. I could feel the difference myself. This shift in mindset didn't just affect my emotions. It changed my behavior, too. When I felt grateful, I naturally wanted to treat myself better. I chose healthier foods not because I had to, but because I wanted to honor my body. I went for walks because I felt thankful to be able to move, not because I was punishing myself for being inactive. That inner transformation made every healthy habit easier to maintain. It wasn't discipline anymore. It was self-respect. A positive mindset also improved how I connected with others. When I stopped complaining, conversations became more uplifting. People around me smiled more, and I could sense that my energy was contagious. Instead of dragging others into negativity, I began to lift them up. That sense of harmony and peace made me realize that wellness is not just physical. It's emotional and spiritual too. Each thought, each word, each reaction contributes to the kind of health we create within ourselves. It's easy to believe that staying healthy requires big changes, strict diets, long workouts, or expensive supplements. But real wellness, especially as we grow older, begins with small, consistent actions that are simple enough to become habits. I learned that transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens in quiet, gradual steps that add up over time. When I decided to make my health a priority again, I didn't start with a long list of rules. I began by paying attention to the small things: how I ate, how I moved, and how I cared for myself each day. Those small shifts, though they seemed ordinary at first, became the foundation for lasting energy and vitality. One of the first changes I made was in my diet. Instead of worrying about what to eliminate, I focused on what to add. I began including more colors on my plate: leafy greens, bright oranges, deep reds, and purples. Each meal became a chance to nourish myself rather than restrict myself. I replaced sugary snacks with fruits, switched fried foods for lightly cooked vegetables, and added a handful of nuts for healthy fats. These weren't drastic sacrifices. They were gentle upgrades that made my body feel lighter and more balanced. I started drinking more water too, realizing that dehydration often disguises itself as fatigue or hunger. Just by sipping water regularly, my digestion improved, my skin looked fresher, and my energy stayed steady throughout the day. Another small habit that changed everything was daily movement. I used to think exercise meant pushing hard, sweating, or feeling sore afterward, but I discovered that movement doesn't have to be exhausting to be effective. A simple 15-minute walk in the morning or after dinner became one of my favorite rituals. On days when my knees ached, I'd stretch gently or do breathing exercises while seated. I even began to enjoy light household activities like gardening or cleaning, seeing them as chances to stay active instead of chores to complain about. Over time, my flexibility improved, my balance felt steadier, and I noticed a sense of freedom in how my body moved. The best part was that these changes didn't feel like work. They became a natural part of my day. Sleep and rest also became small but powerful habits. I set a routine to go to bed and wake up at the same time, allowing my body to find its rhythm again. I avoided heavy meals before bedtime, turned off screens earlier, and spent a few minutes reading or reflecting before sleeping. These simple choices helped me wake up refreshed, with more mental clarity and less irritability. The beauty of small habits is that they build momentum. Each good choice encourages another. When you start to feel better, you naturally want to do more for yourself. There's no need for perfection or pressure, just gentle consistency. Every glass of water, every short walk, every mindful bite of food becomes a quiet promise to your body that you care. Over time, these small efforts grow into big results. More strength, sharper focus, and a sense of youthful vitality that doesn't fade with age but strengthens with intention. For many years, I believed that exercise was something only younger people could enjoy. I thought staying fit meant going to the gym, lifting weights, or running for miles, and that was no longer realistic for me. But as I grew older, I realized that movement doesn't have to be intense or exhausting to make a difference. The human body is designed to move no matter the age, and gentle activity can bring incredible benefits when done regularly. I discovered that small, mindful movements could bring back strength, flexibility, and balance, not only to my body but also to my mind. When I started walking every day, even for 10 to 15 minutes, I noticed changes that surprised me. My breathing improved, my energy levels rose, and my mood lifted. A short walk after breakfast or before sunset became my moment of peace, a time to reconnect with myself. I didn't need fancy equipment or a gym membership. I just needed comfortable shoes and a willingness to start. Sometimes I'd walk with a friend and share light conversation, which made it even more enjoyable. On rainy days, I walked indoors or stretched in place. What mattered most was consistency, not intensity. Gentle stretching also became a part of my routine. I would stand or sit and slowly move my arms, shoulders, and neck, feeling the tension melt away. These small stretches improved my posture and made it easier to reach, bend, or even tie my shoes without stiffness. I also practiced simple balance exercises, standing on one foot while holding onto a chair or shifting weight from one leg to another. These tiny movements might seem insignificant, but they helped strengthen my legs and prevent falls. My confidence in my body returned, and that confidence gave me freedom. Breathing exercises added another layer of calm and focus. I learned to inhale deeply through the nose and exhale slowly through the mouth, repeating it a few times a day. Deep breathing filled my body with oxygen and cleared my mind of clutter. I noticed that whenever I felt anxious or tired, just taking a few mindful breaths brought me back to center. It reminded me that health isn't just about muscles. It's about harmony between body and mind. The best part about light exercise is that it respects the body's limits while still helping it grow stronger. There's no need to compete, rush, or push through pain. The goal is to move with awareness and kindness. Over time, these movements increase circulation, support heart health, and ease joint stiffness. They also release endorphins, those natural chemicals that make us feel happier and more alive. Even small actions like standing up more often, taking stairs slowly instead of elevators, or stretching during television breaks count as valuable movement. Every step, stretch, and breath adds to the foundation of long-term wellness. The body responds beautifully to gentle care, and the reward is not just physical strength, but a renewed sense of independence, calm, and vitality that turns every day into a gift of movement and life. Practicing gratitude may sound simple, but it has the power to completely transform how we experience life, especially as we grow older. For a long time, I used to focus on what I had lost: my youth, certain abilities, or the fast pace I once kept. It was easy to dwell on aches, limitations, or the things that didn't go my way. But when I began to consciously shift my attention toward what was still good, my perspective changed, and with it, my sense of peace and energy. Gratitude didn't erase my problems, but it softened them, giving me a new way to face each day with hope and calm. At first, it felt unusual to think about gratitude intentionally. My mind was so used to focusing on what was wrong that it resisted the change. But I started small. Each evening before bed, I wrote down 3 simple things I was thankful for. Some days it was something as ordinary as a warm meal, a kind message from a friend, or a comfortable night's sleep. Other days I wrote about bigger things: the joy of seeing my grandchildren, the sound of rain, or simply the fact that I was alive to see another day. What began as a small nightly habit slowly became a powerful mental exercise that reshaped how I viewed my world. As the days passed, I noticed I began to look for good things during the day, just so I could write them down later. I started seeing beauty in places I once overlooked. The colors of the sky, the laughter of people around me, the feeling of sunshine on my hands. My attention shifted from problems to blessings. This simple change had a physical effect too. I felt calmer. My heart rate seemed steadier. I found myself smiling more often. Science supports this too. When we practice gratitude, our brain releases serotonin and dopamine, chemicals that enhance mood and reduce stress. In short, gratitude doesn't just make us happier, it makes us healthier. I also began to notice how gratitude influenced the way I spoke and acted. When I appreciated people more, I naturally became kinder. I thanked the cashier with genuine warmth, listened more patiently to others, and expressed appreciation for small gestures. My relationships deepened because people could sense the sincerity in my words. Gratitude built bridges where complaints once built walls. Even in moments of difficulty, I found that I could still choose to be grateful for the lessons those moments offered. That mindset gave me strength to handle challenges with grace instead of frustration. Over time, this practice became a way of living. I no longer had to remind myself to be thankful, and it came naturally. My mind began to focus on abundance rather than lack. Each morning, I woke up and noticed that my first thought was no longer about what hurt or what was missing, but about what was possible. Gratitude made me realize that aging is not about decline, but about perspective. The heart that appreciates life stays young no matter how many years pass, because it sees every day as another opportunity to experience joy, connection, and peace. Many people believe that once they reach a certain age, it's too late to make meaningful changes, but that belief couldn't be further from the truth. The truth is that change has no deadline. The body and mind are remarkably adaptable at every stage of life, and with a little intention and consistency, they can respond beautifully to care, movement, and positivity. I learned this lesson when I decided to shift my focus from what I couldn't do to what I still could. That single decision opened the door to a renewed sense of purpose and vitality that I hadn't felt in years. At 75, I discovered that the human spirit is far more flexible than we give it credit for. Age may bring physical changes, but it also brings wisdom, patience, and perspective, qualities that make transformation even more meaningful. When we stop believing that it's too late, we give ourselves permission to grow again. I started by making small, gentle adjustments to my daily routine. I began walking regularly, drinking more water, eating mindfully, and replacing negative thoughts with gratitude. None of these changes were dramatic, but together they created a powerful shift in my health and happiness. Each improvement, no matter how small, reminded me that progress is always possible when the heart is willing. One of the most liberating realizations was that mindset determines how young or old we feel. Our bodies reflect the way we think. When I filled my mind with discouragement and regret, I felt tired and stiff. But when I began thinking with hope and curiosity, I felt lighter and more alive. It wasn't magic. It was the natural result of energy flowing toward positivity instead of self-doubt. I realized that life doesn't slow down because of age. It slows down when we stop believing in our ability to adapt. The moment I began treating every new day as an opportunity to improve rather than another reminder of time passing, everything started to change. Change also became easier when I stopped comparing myself to others. I learned to honor my own pace, to celebrate progress rather than perfection. Even when I stumbled or felt discouraged, I reminded myself that persistence matters more than speed. Each effort, whether it was completing a walk, choosing a healthy meal, or keeping a positive attitude, was a quiet victory that brought me closer to the person I wanted to be. These victories built confidence and reminded me that growth is possible at any age. I also found that when I embraced change, it inspired others around me. My friends began walking with me, trying my recipes or sharing their own stories of renewal. It created a ripple effect of encouragement and hope. We all began to realize that aging isn't an ending, but a continuation, a chance to live more consciously and joyfully. It's not about turning back the clock. It's about making the present moment stronger, healthier, and more fulfilling. The belief that it's never too late to change is what keeps the spirit alive, guiding every step toward a brighter, more meaningful life.